So I have been back and forth on my opinion on abortion over the years. I am now comfortable in saying that I am definitely pro-choice. At the end of the day, of course, there are going to be some exceptions to up to certain points. I am pro-choice, etc., things like this. But at the end of the day, it seems as though the research heavily suggests that there is no sentience. The fetus does not have any sentience until around 28 weeks or so. So the way I see it is you're not killing a human being because there was never even sentience or a human being or personhood or anything there to begin with. You're simply preventing a human being from ever being here at all. So there is a difference, the way that I look at it. And I also researched a little bit and did find this. Fetal awareness occurs around 28 weeks. There was a new bill that argued that developments in scientific and medical knowledge suggest that fetuses may perceive pain earlier. However, then the research was re-examined. The review found that evidence suggests that pain perception before 28 weeks is unlikely. This means that there is no basis for considering the administration of, this is for anesthesia and other things. It seems as though, based on what we understand as far as sentience develops and everything else, it's not until 28 weeks. This is based on a 2010 review of fetal awareness, and it found that the cortex is necessary for pain perception and that connections are not intact before 24 weeks. It was therefore concluded that a fetus cannot experience pain in any sense before this stage. This evidence was reviewed in 2022 in light of new in utero surgery developments and in the neuroscientific study of pain perception to examine if changes in clinical practice were warranted. The review found that evidence suggests that pain perception before 28 weeks is unlikely. The vast majority of abortions occur during the first trimester of a pregnancy. In 2021, 93% of abortions occurred during the first trimester. That is at or before 13 weeks of gestation. It seems as though when most abortions take place, the way that our understanding is of this matter thus far, there's not even sentience. So that's my general take on abortion as far as being pro-choice, as far as why I justify it. If anybody has issues with or if anybody wants to claim that it's like murder or something like this. Of course, there's also the whole other issue of the fact that the fetus is inside of someone else's body. It is inside of a human being that does already have personhood, that does already have sentience. And so I think that in that case, if you're weighing the value of a human being with personhood and sentience versus the genetic material for a human being that's not even formed yet, I think we have a pretty clear answer here. So anyway, Trump has now caused a massive rift within a bunch of the Republican Party because he's trying to play the centrist card on the issue of abortion. Trump says abortion should be a states' rights issue, and then he says Republicans must also win elections. So after months of dodging questions about his abortion position, former President Donald Trump rejected calls to endorse a national abortion ban, saying he believes it should be a states' rights issue. So, a couple things. Banning abortion doesn't really do all that much except raise the rate of unsafe abortions. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If you are pro-life, my thought would be that you want to see more life. But you're actually going to see more death with the federal banning of abortion. And if we see, and what happens when states ban abortions? Well, actually, pretty much nothing. In fact, the most recent data strongly suggests that abortion rates have slightly increased since states have started restricting abortion. In fact, abortion rates have increased in the states next to states that have restricted abortion because people are just going to the other states to get abortions. So state abortion bans don't actually reduce abortion. Federal abortion bans only result in more harm and more unsafe abortions. So how do you actually reduce abortion? If you don't want abortion to take place, if you're against abortion, if you're pro-life, then There's two things you can be doing. One, push for better sex education. When you have adequate sex ed, you see reduction in unplanned pregnancies. Unplanned pregnancies, of course, are the leading cause for abortion right now. So you see a reduction in unplanned pregnancy when you have proper sex education. The states that don't mandate sex education, ironically enough, has the highest rate of unplanned pregnancies as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing you can do is provide better access to contraceptives. It's that simple. When people have better access and easier access to contraceptives, abortion rates go down because unplanned pregnancy rates go down. So anyway, Donald Trump has clearly been dodging this for a long while, and now he's over here saying, my view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint. The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land in this case, the law of the state. Damn. Many states will be different. Many states will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart, or in many cases, your religion or your faith, Trump said. Do what's right for your family and what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country and vote. Okay. Trump ended his message by sharing the key point that seemed to be the basis for his position. This is how Republicans will be able to win elections. So Trump is now trying to play the centrist card because he wants to get more votes, and he thinks that this is the most efficient and effective way to do that. Of course, this is also leading to a huge pushback from other conservatives. So Lindsey Graham, who at one point hated Trump, then was like Trump's biggest suck-up, is now beefing with Trump again over Trump's comments on abortion. Former President Donald Trump can usually count on support from South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham, but not when it comes to abortion. Graham echoed other conservative Republicans, including former Vice President Mike Pence, in criticizing Trump's announcement that states should decide their own individual policies. The presumptive GOP presidential nominee refused to support a federal abortion ban of the type backed by Graham and other members of the Republican political base. Again, like, good, because that just does not do any good. You're not going to help the situation. So Graham supports a federal abortion ban after 15 weeks of pregnancy. You guys already got Roe v. Wade overturned, okay? Now it's not good enough that you just overturned this thing. Now you have to literally ban it federally also. Of course, Trump is championing the fact that Roe v. Wade was ultimately overturned, and he seems to be in support of the states having abortion rights back in their own control. However, I would be very curious to know Trump's position on how some of these states are now going about enacting full-blown abortion bans. Arizona Supreme Court rules a near total abortion ban from 1864 is enforceable. I sure hope that there aren't any other laws from the 1800s that are still enforceable in the state of Arizona. Eesh, I would hate to see what the law books had to say about black people in 1864. Hopefully that's not still enforceable in Arizona, right? The ruling is on hold for 14 days, and voters will likely have a chance to weigh in on a ballot measure to enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution this fall. And not only is this a law from the fucking 1800s, the ruling also makes abortion a felony punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison for anyone who performs one or helps a woman obtain one. Okay, so just know you're going to see more death. You're going to see similar rates of abortion because illegal abortions will continue. And then you're going to see a higher rate of maternal death. So the pro-lifers are suddenly coming off as very pro-death. It's very odd. The Civil War era law, enacted half a century before Arizona even gained statehood, was never repealed. And the court ruled last year that it could remain on the books as long as it was harmonized with the 2022 law. The decision, which could shutter abortion clinics in the state, effectively undoes a lower court's ruling that stated that a more recent 15-week ban from March 2022 superseded the 1864 law. I guess when they say make America great again, they really do mean like go back when there was like slavery and shit. Go back to when women were just baby making machines and that's all. Make America great again. Hiccup. And then maybe you think that's like probably as insane as the Republicans are willing to get. Hate to break it to you, but you're wrong. The Alabama Supreme Court issued a ruling on February 16th declaring that embryos created through in vitro fertilization should be considered children. Several of the state's IVF clinics have since paused services, and lawmakers, doctors, and patients are raising concerns about the far-ranging impacts of the ruling on healthcare. But yeah, that is just generally my thoughts on abortion, and also my thoughts regarding the recent controversy with Trump taking kind of a milquetoast stance ultimately. However, his milquetoast stance is still making it far easier for these radical Republican rejects to enact terrible policy in these states regarding abortion. Yes, hello.
Hi. So my one of the primary things that I think that I had an issue with is this idea that illegal abortions are going to go up and therefore more women are going to die in these illegal botched coat hanger backroom abortions. Um, well, my argument would be okay, so it's illegal, right? Is one of my things. I see that as an emotional argument, and this is I commented earlier, I think, towards the beginning of the stream where I said, I wonder how much support abortion activists would actually have if they refrained from making emotional and statistically anomalous arguments, right? Um, for instance, women who die in childbirth, but it could have been prevented, right? I think that there would be far less support for it. And the reason why this is, my evidence would just be looking at the religious affiliation of the country, right? 63% of the population in America is Christian.
Okay. There's also a large, like, I believe the majority of the US also supports abortion rights.
Yes, I understand that, but I think that part of the reason why this is because there a lot of the arguments that abortion activists make are emotional. They're
Okay,
not
well, this isn't an emotional argument because when I say that deaths are going to go up, this is based on data. So it says there's published US pregnancy and abortion death rates to project how many deaths would occur if all pregnancies that currently end in abortion were instead continued to miscarriage or term. The conservative estimate found that the annual number of pregnancy related deaths would increase by 21% overall. So, to be clear, this is pregnancy related deaths. I should have been more clear originally. This isn't purely illegal abortions, but these are a wide array of reasons as to why people might die when abortion has suddenly been restricted. And you say you don't care about this, but you also are you pro life or just pro life for some people?
No, I'm pro-life, but that doesn't mean like I would oppose something like the death sentence for people who have committed certain crimes, right?
Okay, that's fair. But just to be clear, like this notion that deaths will increase is not an emotional appeal. This is based on this data. I can send this to you if you want. I
Well,
mean,
I
even if we want to consider the fact that being pregnant is more risky than abortion, you're going to see a uptick in maternal related deaths. You will.
well, yeah, I can concede on the point that you might see an increase, right? Because you're not allowing abortion if there's a risky pregnancy, right? But at the same time, I don't think that that's a my point is that I think that instead the argument would be, from a pro-life perspective, is to go and try to advance medical technology further to prevent those things. And a lot of these things, if you catch them early enough, the most common excuse me, pregnancy-related risks that might result in death, these are preventable if you catch them early enough. Most of them, the most common ones.
I'm not really sure what your overall. Okay, so listen, if restricting abortion leads to more death, but there is a safer alternative, wouldn't it make sense to take the safer alternative?
I'm pro-life in the sense that I think, first of all, these are statistical anomalies. Most pregnancies
Wait,
do
aren't you
not
pro?
result
Wait, wait,
in a
wait.
death.
Pro-life means you want there to be less abortion, right?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so what do you think the best way is? If to what do you think the best way is to accomplish less abortion? If it's restricting it, we have the risk of maternal deaths going up. If there was a safer alternative, wouldn't it make sense to opt for the safer alternative if it would still reduce abortion rates, which is what you want, and then also wouldn't risk an uptick of maternal deaths?
Okay, no, I want to get rid of abortion entirely. I
Okay,
don't
but
see it as
well,
natural.
that's unrealistic. That's like saying like I want to get rid of all crime permanently forever. Like there's always going to be this thing that exists, and that's just unrealistic. That's whimsical. The best thing we can do is try to reduce the rate of that thing.
Sure, I would agree that that making abortion illegal is not going to all of a sudden just make abortion go away, right? But at the same time, that doesn't mean that just because abortion's always going to happen in some back room somewhere, that therefore then I want it to be legal, right? I
Right,
don't
but what
care
I'm
if people
saying
do
is that
things illegally.
you're saying you want it to be
I mean, I
illegal
do.
because you want abortion rates to go down. And what I'm getting at, the reason I'm asking you these questions is because I'm trying to get you to where I can then tell you that when you provide contraceptives, when you provide better sex education, you see a vast reduction in unplanned pregnancy and abortion rates. So why wouldn't we then opt for that? So many pro-lifers are invested in like these laws that I mean, we just looked at the data involving the states that had banned abortion, and what happened? Abortion rates went up because more people just traveled across state lines and got abortions in the other states.
Okay, but once again, I don't care if people go to if people get around the laws to go have an abortion, it's irrelevant to me. The point is that I think that abortion's just like, for instance, just because people murder, right, doesn't mean that we should make murder legal, right? Would you agree with that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so this is the same position I'm taking with abortion. Just because people are going to get abortions anyways doesn't mean that we should allow it. It's an immoral behavior.
But
Murder
no,
is the
that's the okay,
unjustified
so then
killing of a
that's
human
really the
being.
crux of the argument here. So just to be clear, a federal abortion ban risks an uptick in maternal deaths. Access to free birth control reduces abortion rates. Better sex ed reduces abortion rates. Those are Democrat policies. So
Okay,
we
but
have
I'm
that
against
option to
family
reduce
planning and all
abortion.
that.
You're saying no, just because you view it as immoral. Why is it
Well,
immoral?
no, I'm against any government policy that reduces pregnancy rates, period. Fertility rates, period, right? You can look at
So are you
Afghanistan,
against
or excuse
providing
me, not
birth control
Afghanistan.
then?
Well, yes, I'm against anything that reduces any kind of
Then you're
family
just a fucking
planning thing.
retard,
No,
dude.
the
Who, no, no,
reason
no, no,
why,
no, no.
can
You're
I
a
tell you
fucking
why?
idiot, bro.
Can I
Because
tell
you
you
do.
why?
Why? Is it because white people are being replaced or something?
No, it's not because of white people being replaced. It's because every nation in the world that goes and does this, it doesn't matter if it's white, black, I don't care about your race. The point is that every nation that implements family planning policies has a massive reduction in fertility rates. Iran is
So
a great
what?
example of this.
Wait, you're saying you don't care when people die. Now I'm saying, so what if there are less people being born? You realize that there's also something to do with uh, poverty and more pregnancy. So, like, third world countries usually have higher birth rates because there's a higher risk of the child dying. And there's an evolutionary explanation there as to why people will reproduce more and more and more if the offspring have a higher chance of dying. But in more developed nations, where the children are far more healthy, then that need is no longer there. That's why in more developed areas, you see less birth rates. This is an
No, I think this
evolutionary thing.
I think that this is more due to contraception than it is due to because this would have to also say that okay, people are just less interested in having sex, you know, as their because their kid doesn't die in the first year of their life, right? Like that's kind of dumb.
No, that I'm giving you the evolutionary explanation. You know that there's more, like, you can look in third world nations. There are higher birth rates there. You know that, right?
Yes, and there's less access to contraception.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that it's not actually about the contraception. It's far more to
Okay,
do with the economic situation.
So you're
But
saying
even
that
more
when
so, I would like to know why it's bad then for the birth rates to go down. I've told you that it's because generally that these areas are more developed, so the kids are healthier, so you see people having less kids overall. That's kind of a good thing, right?
yeah, but if you don't, so do you think that people are having less sex just because their children are healthier and live longer and are less likely to die in the first year of their life? Is that what you're saying?
No, no, I gave you an evolutionary explanation and I gave you an economic explanation as to why people in more developed nations tend to have less children.
Okay, so you're kind of trying to weasel out of this. So let me again say this. Let me put it this way then. If in a first world nation there was no contraception, right? At all, right?
Mhm.
There's no abortion, no hormonal nothing, right? Do you think that birth rates would be similar to a third world nation?
I
Or do you
don't
think that they would still be less just because the children live longer and are less
I
likely to die?
don't know entirely because I don't know entirely. I would have to look. But I'm not really that worried about it. I need to know why is it bad if there's less birth rates? Why is that a problem?
Lower birth rates? Because,
Yeah.
okay, if you have lower birth rates, you have a reduction in population. For an example of this would
Well, how
be
do you
South
feel about like
Korea.
immigration?
Well, if you're talking about opening the borders just to replace your population, I would
Not
argue
opening the
why don't
borders, just generally immigration though.
well why would you do that rather than just increase incentives to have for people to have families? Like it doesn't make any sense to me because you're not
So are
fixing the
you against
problem, right?
immigration
You're
then too?
I'm not against immigration necessarily. I am against immigration from certain countries just that have, and the reason why mostly is because of cultural differences. I don't buy into this idea that all cultures are compatible with each other.
Hmm.
But that's another topic entirely. But when it
Right.
comes to you, like I see the immigration thing as sort of like a band-aid rather than an actual
It's
cure,
not. We
right?
have like a steady flow of immigration. We're not like losing a population in any meaningful way that's hurting the economy here. I think if people are having less kids, who cares? Again, you need to explain to me why, even if you ultimately want people to have more kids, why is it immoral for them not to? So like if abortion is immoral, would it also be immoral then to like have sex with a condom?
I'm not saying not having children is immoral. I've never made that claim.
So
I've
sorry,
never
okay, yes, it
once.
was abortion specifically that was immoral, as you
Yeah,
said.
my whole position is if you decide to have sex, then you should be responsible for anything that could be the result of your actions. And this is my argument across the board, regardless of what the behavior is, right? If you decide to do drugs and you have an overdose, maybe we give you a chance, right? You made a mistake. We give you access to one Narcan hit, right? After that, your second overdose, you should have learned, man, at this point, it's like
Yeah,
you're
but you're
costing
saying
people
be
money, you're a
responsible,
burden.
but getting the abortion in that case would be responsible. If you're having
How?
sex, the responsible thing to do is use birth control or contraception, condom, protection, something, right? That's the first thing. If that
Sure.
fails, the second responsible thing to do is the plan B pill. If that fails, the third responsible thing to do is the abortion.
No, the
Responsible
abortion
people
at this
analyze their
point,
environment and can recognize if they're not economically stable enough to support a child right now or something, and then make a decision.
no. So look, if you go gambling, right, and you're at a casino, right, and you start gambling, and then you get into a little bit into debt, right? Uh, and should you stop then at this debt that you can pay off reasonably, but then
But what if you did everything? No, because what if you did everything correctly to avoid the what you're calling a consequence? I don't think, first of all, I don't think a child should be a consequence or a punishment for somebody having sex. That's the first thing. And second of all, what if you did do the right thing? For example, every time I get in my car and put my seatbelt on and drive, that does not mean that I'm consenting to the risk of like, well, I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm consenting to getting in a car accident. Excuse me.
yeah,
So
but I don't see the child as like a burden, right? I don't see it,
but no, no, but hold
the
on. Let
words
me
you used,
finish
I
though,
can't
right?
remember.
I put the seatbelt on. I took the proper measures to do everything I could, but still got in a car accident. Just if I'm driving, that doesn't mean that, well, you're driving, so you accepted the risk, so that you have to be okay with the fact that you also just got smashed into. It doesn't work
Well,
that way.
that's more so about like if you're I think this is a kind of a weak position, and the reason why that's like, I mean, every day you walk outside of your house, you're accepting the possibility that something might happen that could severely maim or kill you, right? Like
Yeah,
that I
no,
think it's a
actually,
little
not
different.
entirely, no, because we take reasonable precautions. So like, yes, it's possible that if a car ran, like it's possible for a car to run over me and kill me. However, I wear my seatbelt, I keep the doors locked, the doors are closed, windows up, etc., whatever. All these things necessary, right? If you're doing the necessary steps, like contraception, whatnot, a pregnancy there should not be the punishment or the consequence.
You see, I don't see it as a punishment. I see it as you should accept that, okay, if I engage in this behavior, right? Like for instance, if you were to go out of your house and you went driving, right? And you're drunk, right? You accept that there's a possibility you're going to end up hurting someone, possibly killing them,
No,
and you're
what you're saying
responsible
is
for any
actually that if
damage as
you're
the
the
result.
no, what your example is more comparable to if you're the person driving sober, you get hit by a drunk driver, and then I tell you, well, you were driving, so you accepted the risks that you might get smashed into by a drunk driver.
No, this would be more equivalent. You could make this argument if you were saying for like we're on YouTube, so I don't know how I would
You can say whatever you want, it's fine.
so for instance, right?
Hmm.
Then I would accept this hypothetical, but as it comes to someone who's consenting to sex, I don't agree with this hypothetical at this point because this would be more akin to the person who's driving consenting to drinking and then driving anyways. That would be more, I think.
No,
For
because what
instance,
we're talking about right now is somebody who may have had sex, had the proper precautions, and then she gets pregnant anyway. And you're saying, well, too bad. You took the risks when you were having sex. And what I'm
yes,
saying is
that
it
would
doesn't
be the
really
drunk
work that way
driver.
because you could then extend that to virtually anything.
So do you think that the woman who got pregnant after consenting to having sex is just completely innocent and she was just driving down the road like she wasn't like do you think that she's comparable to the innocent person driving down the road who just minding their own business who gets hit by a drunk driver? Or do you think that maybe she's comparable to the person who consented to drinking and then is driving down the road and then hits
No, because she
someone
didn't
and
consent to getting pregnant necessarily. That
neither did the
possible, no,
man?
that, okay, that possible risk there is different. This is again more akin to being like, well, you were walking around on the street or close to the street late at night, and you knew that there might be drunk drivers driving around at this hour, but you still drove around. Therefore, when you get hit, you kind of had it coming because, well, you should have known better, right?
No, that's more of about a reduction of risk. But the whole thing though is like I mean, if you want to reduce your odds of getting hit by a drunk driver, you would obviously not drive, for instance, on New Year's, right? New Year's night or whatever. But the point though is that still the people who willingly got into the car drunk, they're held responsible for their actions regardless of how they feel about it. It doesn't matter. They consented, they made the choice to do that knowing that they were impaired and that this could happen. That's the same equivalent to what the woman is doing. She's taking all the precautions to avoid a pregnancy, but she goes and does this thing and she gets
It's
pregnant
not
anyway.
comparable
She should be
because
held
driving drunk,
responsible.
no, driving drunk is not taking the proper precautions. It's the opposite. This would be more comparable to the woman going out and I don't know, sleeping around with a bunch of people and never using protection or something. I don't know. Like we're your analogy is almost completely disanalogous at this point, but we've also
I
kind
would
of
agree
deviated
with
enough
I
so
would
from
I
the topic.
agree, but I would agree with your analogy if it was about but as it stands
Okay,
when
well,
it
but
comes to consensual sex, I don't
regardless, though,
agree
at
with
the
the
end of the
analogy.
day, all of this stuff aside, like at the end of the day, there's a safe alternative here to reduce abortion, which is what you ultimately want. But you don't want
I
to take it because you have this weird thing about like birth rates or something.
No, I want to make abortion illegal, period. I don't want to reduce it. I want and I guess yeah, at the end of the day, it is a reduction in abortion, right? If you make it illegal, because there are still going to be people who get abortions illegally, but
All
once
you
again,
can
it's
do is try to reduce stuff that you don't agree with, right? Like it's
I can agree with that.
impossible to ever have the absence, like a complete and total absence of something that like
Well,
in
yeah.
this context at least.
Yeah, no one wants a school shooting, but it happens anyways. You can just do things to reduce the likelihood of that happening, right?
Right. So you don't even have to be like pro-choice and be a big abortion fan. Like you could not like abortion and still ultimately advocate for the policies that are going to lead to a reduction in abortion in a way that's also safer for everybody.
Okay. What do you think about sentience then? Because my whole position on sentience is that it's irrelevant, right? My whole position is that it's a uniquely genetic, it's genetically
Honestly, dude, I'm
uniquely
sorry, but I
human.
don't think that you're sentient.
You don't think I'm
So yeah. If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.